Bustleton welcomed us earlier in the week. We are now centred about 50 kilometres to the southeast in Nannup. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our EROAD Australian Rally Championship social platforms and YouTube channel as well. Greg Rust and Dean Herridge with you. We are about a third of the way through the final stage of day one. We're going to bring you some live coverage of this as a part of a new plan, a new thing that we're executing in 2025. But first, let's set the scene for you. It's round two of the championship, and the schedule from here takes us to Queensland. We're very excited about heading to Gippsland as well. Some fast roads in South Australia.
And it will all
wrap up in Tasmania.
Tasmania and Burnie, what a final round we had last year. And the way the season and the roads and the competition is shaping up, that's going to be a classic end to what's going to be a great season.
So that's what's to look forward to in terms of the remaining rounds of the series. Here's what's on the immediate radar for you. This is the event schedule. So we're at the final stage of Saturday. 100 Ks of competitive on the opening day and another 80 to come tomorrow. Some fast roads affected by some wet weather in the lead-up, and we have got a heat on our hands, don't we? It's quite a battle.
Have we indeed? And it does come down to this last 15 kilometres. I mean, I guess forget the other 85. We are down, as you say, Rusty, in the lead-up to this, 3.5 seconds. Hayden Paddon is in front of Scott Petter, so this stage does count. We're 5 kilometres in. This is fairly unique, and we're pretty excited about watching it come through.
Where we are is to the northeast now of Nannup itself, about a 25-minute drive up near Bailing Up, for example. And this is the section of road we're going to show you something of a little bit of a roller coaster vibe or feel about it. This is directly over our shoulder, quite a tight right-hander. First car we're expecting on the road, of course, Lewis Bates and Anthony McLaughlin.
Exactly. So obviously inherited the lead on the road after Harry had problems earlier in the day. A little drama in the service. They came out late. That means they're about 6th on the road. It means, in effect, as he comes into shot now, Lewis Bates first on the road. Not too much of a drama in these conditions, and they have been saying the road in the best condition they've seen. As you can hear him coming towards us now, over our shoulder, into the hairpin.
Let's take a look. Executes it beautifully. And the next car we're expecting not too far away, Scott Petter, who we caught up with at the midday service.
What a terrific day for you, Scott. How are we going with everything? This is the second run across the stage now. Yep. How are you feeling? Are you going to go quicker for the end?
Yeah, I think we can. I think, it was obviously quite a lot of loose gravel on that stage this morning. We had a good run. But I think we can all go faster over that stage. Obviously, you always go fast the second time through, so hopefully that's the case.
Well, you're not far behind, so all my luck is with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Scott Petter there with Taylor, who'll be bringing us updates across the weekend, been doing a great job for us along the way. He is in the newer generation Skoda, we should point out as well. And he's described this machine, compared to the car he ran last year, the R5 car, significantly different in all sorts of areas.
Well, and you've got to come comfortable to it as well. I mean, obviously he's loving it, the refinement, etc. But, Tom's shown that the other car's no slouch either. At the end of the day, these Rally 2 cars are very capable, regardless of what evolution they are. It does come down to sort of making the car comfortable. And to be honest, we have been focusing a little bit on that to try and make the car, when you're confident with it, you can attack more. You're not overthinking it, etc. I think Scott is starting to find his feet here today.
So Scott with Glenn McNeil, very experienced co-driver who you know well. And coming into this point, it has been a tug of war between he and Hayden Paddon for a moment. Scott had a slender lead, but the Kiwi has fought back.
The first one out of service, he bounced back. He said, I was on the limit. It was 5 seconds up, put him in the lead only by about half a second. Now, I've got to say, on the service in, when they came through, I saw Harry, Lewis and Hayden all come up to Scott and say, Scott, we thought we had a pretty good run. That must have been pretty exciting in your car. So Scott has got the eyes on. He does particularly well on this one, but he's got to be neat and tidy, because if he wants to take the heat win, this is all going to come down to sort of taking on one of the best. And so see how he comes through this hairpin where we saw Lewis before.
2014 Australian Rally Champion, been a regular fixture of this sport. And what do you reckon of that? That apex there looked nice.
He set it up quite early on the crown of the road, but you can just see you just have to have absolute faith in the car. The nose just tucked in, and I thought it felt a little more aggressive than Lewis through there for sure.
Okay. The differences in the behaviour of the Skodas, we should point out too, having a good chat with Tom Christensen, who we'll see up here very shortly, the Swede who's joined us for this round of the championship. And he pointed out that there are some strengths to the older generation R5 car versus the car that Scott is competing in now, and they do behave differently, don't they?
Yeah, the longer wheelbase, he said, probably on the longer, faster flowing, that newer generation car can be a little bit more advantageous. Maybe through some of these tighter sections, and the Lewana stage we're in now is a little tighter, a little more technical, and he said that does come to the fore in that regard. So, like I said, he's the right person to ask. I think he's driven every single Rally 2 car that's ever been made, apart from one. So he's well credentialed to comment.
Nice to have you with us for our coverage. A reminder, too, to go to rally.com.au and our Subaru Results Hub for all of the different cups and classes that we have competing in the Australian Rally Championship. Right now, we're focusing on the outright battle. You've got some time, Stu.
Yeah,
Let's
we're
update
trying to
the
do our
audience.
best here with some stuff. So at the split, which is about 3.5 Ks into this one, Lewis, 2.3 behind Scott Petter. So Scotty Petter, about 3/4 of a second a kilometre up on Lewis. That's not the big one. We need to know how Hayden's going, who's next coming up.
Looking in the distance there, climbing the hill, is the 7-time New Zealand Rally champion. In recent years, successful on the European scene, the first non-European combination to win that crown. Partnered with John Kennard. Great to have Hayden Paddon as a part of this series. And he seemed a little despondent when we spoke to him at the end of stage 1 this morning, just trying to get the confidence because we've had rain overnight, finding where the grip was on the road, but he seems to be flying this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. They're all very confident. Let's have a looking through here. Similar to Scotty, he'd had a couple of goes at it early, same commitment level, but just on that crown of the road, very tricky. You got to imagine coming down in here, braking, pivoting the car, a little bit of handbrake. But no, they're world-class drivers in world-class cars. It's awesome. And,
I mean, it's so fantastic for us to have that sort of head-to-head contest between the likes of the Bateses in those GR Yaris's and the Hyundai in this championship now. And we've got more Hyundais to come, of course, in our lineup. We'll bring you that as a part of our coverage. We do have a little bit of news, though, I think, in relation to Alex Rouleau, which we'll update you on.
I just wanted to say that 3.4K split, Hayden is on at 1.5 seconds up. So Scotty's going to have to find something in those last 10 or so Ks. Amazing. 10 kilometres or thereabouts from this point of the stage to the end of Heat 1. All sorts of stories to bring you to. If you like your two-wheel competition, the 2-time Dakar champion in Toby Price is competing in the Subaru WRX Challenge in a car that Maximum Motorsport has prepped. He is loving it. It's only his 3rd ever rally and having a really good time too. And first one on pace notes at the end of the day. So, you know, for him, that's part of the challenge in being involved in the series. He's loving being involved in rallying. He said, this is my first, he's done a couple of rallies, but the first forest stage is where he feels like this is the stuff I watched on television. So here is Tom Christensen, not to be confused with the Le Mans sports car star. This is a Swede who we are delighted to have with us for this round of the championship, and he has got a world of experience, if you like, on all sorts of surfaces in Europe. And when we spoke to him prior to this meeting, we said, hey, how are you going to go on the marbly roads here down south near Nannup in Western Australia? And he said, you know what, if I combine my experience on all of those different surfaces, maybe that'll help me here. And he did say, but you very, very unique. Let's have a look. First time we're seeing him live in action. It's going to be interesting on the brakes here. In the car that Scott Petter ran last year, that looks like it was nicely executed there. Yeah, sorry, he says to me that he turns in a lot early, and you could sort of see that he's probably the closest to the apex on the inside there. So basically, yeah, a very aggressive driver, particularly early in the corner. Same thing, had to have a couple of goes down the hill, but he's an exciting driver. He's already won a few fans already. So. Now, we were hoping to catch up with Alex Rouleau at this point of our coverage. We caught up with him at the midday service, but I want to bring you up to speed on some news that has just emerged in relation to him in the stage prior to this one. Yeah, we're expecting to come through now. We hear 5 kilometres or so, or 13 kilometres into that stage, he's had a drama. Impact was about 5G, which in rally terms is a little nasty. It's sort of probably a wheel off or something like that, potentially. They're both okay. But yeah, unfortunately, sort of sees him out of the fight. He was sitting sort of in 4th, just in front of Tom and a few others, even Harry Bates. So. He's been enjoying working, if you like, under the eave, the annex, the broader umbrella with Hayden Paddon this weekend, and changing subtly the way that he's had his car set up, even though he's got so much experience on these WA roads as a local. I think it's a smart ploy when you look at the Rouleau Motorsport, being able to bring someone like Hayden in, who's not only world-class, but drives these cars. So you've got someone to instantly compare to. If you're out there doing it yourself, so he came to service, you and I both spoke to him, he said, look, I've sort of basically bolted some of Hayden's stuff in, see how I can adapt to it. you know it works. If your style's similar, you can take advantage of that experience. That's really important.
Now, we are still waiting to see Harry Bates. If you've just joined us for our coverage, and perhaps you saw last night on Facebook that he drew car 1 in our Bosch Motorsport ballot. So in theory, he should be car 1 on the road. They had a problem with a sensor in that car. The team at Neil Bates Motorsport at the very first service this morning worked furiously to try and get that change done for him. He'd had a warning pop up on the dash. They were worried about the impact on anti-lag, for example, and so on. But there was a little bit of lost time in that service, and as a consequence, penalty, and has dropped down the start order.
Yeah, minute 20 worth of penalties. 5 seconds per minute late out of service is why he's down the running order. But typical Harry Bates, salvaging what he can, being smart about the way he drives, fast, but trying not to make errors. And he's likely at this stage, all things being equal, to fight back to 5th. That's important when you're trying to build a championship, to go to make sure you bank points on a rough day.
Reigning champion, 3-time Australian champion. And, you know, he knows this season is going to be a fierce contest. We're only at round 2 of the EROAD Australian Rally Championship. Fantastic to have you with us for our coverage. Big day coming your way tomorrow too, with 80 Ks of competitive to wrap up this round of the series. Let's go to the results so far.
Yeah, so the split that we looked at 3.4, which had Hayden Paddon up. We had Tom Christensen 1.4 down. He's a 1/10 of a second up on the split to Scott Petter. So like I said, we will now sort of wait for the next one to come through, which I've just got now, and Hayden's increased that gap to 5 seconds. So at the 9K mark, Hayden Paddon is looking good on in the box seat to take this heat.
Started Canberra pretty well, but it was a bit of heartbreak for the Kiwi on the Sunday. It was kind of nice to see him patting the kangaroos here in the in the lead up. Here we go. So Troy Dow. This is a great story. Okay, so. We know his dad very well as a part of the Australian Rally Championship family. The car that he is running now has good history in the Australian Rally Championship, and it falls the preparation of this customer car under the Neil Bates Motorsport umbrella, doesn't it?
And I'm really interested to see, you know, the last couple of seasons you've seen someone like Troy jumping in and out of some of the Rally 2 cars. This is an AP4 setup. They are slightly different to drive. I want to try and catch up with tonight after having a whole day under his belt. New combination with Mitch Garrard as the co-driver. So, you know, finding their feet, not making mistakes, getting the kilometres up. That's what this weekend's all about for Troy. It's building some confidence up, and great to have him, you know, back doing some rounds of the Australian Championship a little earlier than we were anticipating, which is awesome.
Easy up tyre repair kit backing on that car. Distinctive yellow and white scheme. Here it comes on approach, and just trying to gauge sort of way he's going to attack this. It sort of falls down initially to the left, and then they flick the car to the right. It looks a little on the straighter or narrower side of things, doesn't it?
You can just see as he's coming down, very cautious, just letting the car run down under brakes. You know, compared to the front guys that you saw before, they'd had the car set up and flicked it in.
Let's catch up with Harry. We saw him at the midday service.
Harry, you're a minute 20 behind with the penalties this morning. We're now 3 stages into the run. We've got 3 more to go. How are we feeling for the rest of the day? Are we going to push really hard or be more conservative?
We need to go out this afternoon and try and pick off as many people as we can. So currently we're lying P6, I think, and I think maybe P4, P5 is realistic, but everyone's on a hot pace today, so it's going to be difficult to overhaul people. But for sure, Coral and I just need to keep pushing as hard as we can and see if we can move up the leaderboard a little bit.
Your teamwork out there looks amazing, so good luck.
Thanks to Taylor Marlene there, getting a little more detail around that sensor issue with Harry Bates that has affected him this morning. Ever the champion, fighting back as the day has continued, and you've got to do that in this limited championship. We've got so much variety in the style of events, the different roads and places that we go to. You've got to do that, don't you, when you have a little setback like that.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
So we'll watch Harry come through. I just wanted to bring you up to date with the actual stage times through. Hayden Paddon wins the stage with an 8:28.2. Beats Scott Petter by 8.8. He's going to be 10 seconds. He wins Heat 1 here at the Forest Rally.
So we go at this point with about 10 kilometres, as Dean has detailed, beyond us here to try and understand what Harry and the very experienced Coral Taylor beside him, 6-time champion co-driver, has worked so successfully with Neil, and now these days with Harry, what they might be able to get back in the way of seconds, tenths, whatever on this final stage. Pacey.
Yeah, pacey, but efficient is the word I would use. Efficient in the way that he came down, a little less flamboyant, but that's sort of his style, but still fast. And like I said, that's why he's quite good at not making too many mistakes, to be fair.
Hey, little birdie tells me you tried one of these newer generation cars not long ago. Not a Toyota, a Skoda. What were the impressions?
Yeah, they're pretty impressive bits of kit. I wasn't supposed to have a run in it, so you're not supposed to tell anyone that.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm only kidding.
It was good fun. I mean, obviously, as part of what we're trying to do with Tom, and we made sure Scotty had a bit of a test in it. Look, they're amazing machines. The bit that I love, they are built dedicated rally cars. You know, for a long time there, when I drove for Subaru and we're making production cars into rally cars. That's special in itself. But it's cool to have the Australian Rally Championship have dedicated rally cars. And when they're driven well, they are so spectacular. I think you can see that with the spectator numbers. They are a joy to watch.
Great to have your insights for us, Greg Rust and Dean Herridge with you. We're about 5Ks into the final stage of the day. The Forest Rally, which has so much history in the Australian Rally Championship. Its position on the calendar as a part of the ARC dates back, I think, to about 1983. And with the exception of the pandemic, has been such an important part of it since then. So here we go to a second-generation competitor. His dad, Wayne Hoy, very well known in the Australian Rally Championship. And from a production cup perspective, not only has he been doing the job today, but also incredibly well in the top 10.
Yeah, a very impressive driver. Got a lot of raps on Clayton Hoy. He's got a very well-sorted car, but like I said, you've got to know how to steer it. And like you said, it sort of showcases his talent to be able to steer this through at this pace in a production car. He does a wonderful job. Of course, Aaron Kelly along board. They've been a bit of a combination for a couple of years. First time to Perth, first time on these roads. And like you said, when you've got some skill, it's sort of come the cream rises to the top.
Exactly. Very experienced combination. Great that Aaron is alongside there. And it's a Lancer Evo, obviously.
Oh, did you see the kangaroo come right in front of him? He's missed it. That'll get his attention before the hairpin. Yeah.
Well, might have got his attention. Didn't look like he rolled off too much through that corner.
It doesn't sound great on the shifts. I'm not an Evo expert, but off the shift and the gear changes down, they just sounded a little bit fluffy. But, yeah, full Hayden Paddon moment there.
Multiple New South Wales and Queensland state champions. So we're going to just keep
Well, I want to update you there through. Tom Christensen's done a good job in the event. He's just going to miss out on the podium spot on a fight back by 3 seconds. So Lewis gets third. Tom Christensen will bank fourth. He was trying to go back for that podium spot. Very, very close.
What, just to recap that again, how close did they get in the end? No,
within 3 seconds.
Within 3 seconds. Yeah. So that's actually a great fight back by Christensen, who began the day, we should point out, by turning heads in the galvanised insurance Rally Central, our service park area, because this visitor, who we were so excited about joining the championship, came out on top at the end of the first stage.
Well, we talk up the West Australian roads. He's never been here before. He's in the older spec car, and he's come through. One, he's been spectacular, but to set faster stage times in your first time here, he has never run on the MRF control tyre. Like I said, a clear talent. I mean, I think Scotty said that's impressive, and he has been. That is a great addition to the championship from that point of view.
Now, ordinarily, we would be in just a collared like a polo shirt, maybe even shorts for this event. This is so uncharacteristic. We're rugged up here, and it is getting a little bit cooler. Some cloud cover is starting to edge closer, and we have kind of battled over the past few days that intermittent rain. Even today, in that service park, in our galvanised insurance Rally Central area, it was like a cell came over the top of us, dropped on us, but it did not affect one of the stages.
Yeah, Harry came out to the stage and said, I don't think that rain got out there, which is crazy. It sort of dumped a fair bit of water on, and it was a bit of a disaster for people setting up service parks yesterday. Look, rain potentially tomorrow and maybe this evening, but it's sort of been like that the whole time. And particularly in the sun, it's quite nice, cool in the shade, and the evening's very chilly.
I know my mate's a giant here. I should point out we are on the side of a hill here, so I'm on the slightly lower side too, but we are staying out of the way, but also wanting to get a good view of the cars as they come through. Now, we mentioned about the dramas for Alex Rouleau before. We turn our attention now to his dad, Peter, who's been successful in Targa-style competition, in tarmac competition, but is now a more regular feature and permanent feature, I guess you could say, of the EROAD Australian Rally Championship. We've got a very experienced co-driver with him too in Ben Searcy.
Yeah, Ben Searcy doing a great job. I mean, they won round one of the West Australian Championship. I think it's something Peter's going to focus on. Alex won it last year. Alex sort of sitting out. Peter getting a few kilometres in the car before you get to the bigger events. It came into this stage sitting in 8th outright, just behind Troy Dowell and just in front of Craig Randa, who's in his AP4 car. So consistent run, about where we would expect Peter to be. Not aware of any particular dramas. I think I saw a little bit of bodywork hanging off at some point, which is not unusual in this circumstance. So, like I said, great competitor and similar to what we've heard before. wished he'd started a lot earlier. And that's why I think he really encouraged Alex to get involved. He said, son, you're going to come in and have a crack at this sort of motorsport.
And we are, as we talk to you here, commentate here, we're getting a little sprinkle above us. So will this change the way the stage feels? It's only really light at the moment. As Rulo approaches, you can talk us through it.
Quite something right with that. No, there's bodywork missing on that right front. He punched it on that.
Yeah, something wrong with the left front. The left front.
Well, bodywork gone, but no puncher, but clearly limping. The thing about these, like the shifts are he's short shifting, but he's very ginger. It's almost like a power steering type drama. The car doesn't like being in not 100% throttles, but he sort of spent a lot of time on the hairpin, to me, taking a bit of time, and then sort of short shifted up the box. So I don't know whether it's a drama with the engine that's making not confident, or whether he's coming through and got a bit of a steering issue, but definitely slower and limping a little.
Just trying to listen at the same time as we broadcast for you, because you can hear the cars on approach. So did it sound, as Peter left us, as though it improved a little bit on the exit of the corner?
That's why I wonder, sometimes when you're in a stage mode, the cars like to be 100%, they're made to go fast. So when you slow down, the things limp and buck a little bit. So he was very ginger around the right-hander, which makes me wonder whether there's a steering related or a power steering issue, because he wanted to be very careful to make the hairpin. And as he took off, he short-shifted and made it through. All
right, here's a combination that we want to spend a little moment on here. So as Dylan King approaches here on the run up the hill.
And look, former state champion, very talented steerer. Been in a lot of cars over the time. Only had this particular machine for a couple of years. He sat 11th outright coming into the stage, which I think has had a few issues. He particularly had a clutch drama coming into the weekend and the testing. So the team did an amazing job to get all that sorted before they started the promo. So I don't think the time in his outright position at the moment is reflective of his actual pace. Let's have a look how he goes through this section.
So arguably the car tipped in a little more gingerly, but then hard on the throttle at the exit.
Yeah, it's a really difficult corner. In actual fact, the lead guys that came through the first five are uber aggressive. And if you're sitting in the back on one of these cars, coming into that point to make one application and turn it in like you're on a track is uber difficult to do and takes a lot of confidence. I think as we see some of the more cars come through, this is a tricky bit of road. Like the note would be like left 5, braking hard into a right, and you've got to balance it. There's a bit of a drop-off. I mean, you probably can't quite see it on the shot, but off the side of that, there is no room. There's no guardrail. We're not on a track, so you've got to be tucked in. You come in hot, and you wander on the outside, you're in a world of pain.
Can we talk control tyres for a moment? On the MRF tyres again in 2025, given the cooler weather, given the rain that we've had in the build-up to this, I can't have seen anybody today going beyond the soft. The soft, I think, has been the choice, hasn't it?
And most people are pretty settled on soft, depending who you are and how aggressive you're going with it. They have 16. They're lasting quite well. I think they like the response from the softer type, and particularly in these conditions, absolutely. One thing you might have done back in the day, you might have cut them a little bit if you thought it was going to be excessively wet. You can't do that with a control tyre.
Yes.
So, and apart from Tom this morning, no real dramas I've heard of any dramas with other punches, and Tom's was self-induced. So.
Was hoping to talk to Craig Rando last night at our ceremonial start, the rally show, which took place on the foreshore there at Bustleton. Cool but beautiful night there. We didn't get a chance to catch up with him. He's been such a strong runner in the WA Championship, now armed with a car that we think would give him a little bit of a shot of maybe showing kind of the national regulars what he's made of.
And that's why I think he's chosen this as a step up from his Subaru. He's still coming to grips with it. Debuted it last year. Had quite a big accident in round 1 of the state championship just before this. The team's done an unbelievable job to get this up and running. It was fairly well heavily damaged, so the kick come down.
So not super tight from an apex standpoint?
No, he came in quite confident, so I think he just wanted to pull it up. He probably missed the apex slightly because he looked a little deeper under brakes, and one firm application looked good. Tucked it in, probably didn't be super aggressive on the turn-in. So from that point of view, good runner. He's doing a good job overall. And like I said, coming back from quite a big, nasty accident only sort of 4 odd weeks ago, doing a good job.
Let's update some times for you. So from a Heat 1, a Day 1 perspective here at the Forest Rally, it looks like the Kiwi Hayden Paddon, from the numbers we have seen, providing there's no penalties posted afterwards or anything, doesn't look like it at the moment, has done it by 12.3 seconds from Scott Petter, and Lewis Bates finishing just in the top 3 from a fast-finishing Swede in Tom Christensen.
Yeah, Harry's going to just miss out by about 20 seconds back from Tom, with both them having some dramas during the day. And from a stage time point of view on this particular stage, would you believe Harry Bates and Scott Petter 8.8 seconds behind Hayden Paddon? They tied on this final stage of the day after 15 Ks. I find that fascinating about our sport, that you can fight, you don't see anybody, the cars are different, the style is different, yet they get to the end of 15 kilometres and they are within the same 10th on the number. Is amazing, and that bodes very well when we reset tomorrow and we go for Heat 2 as a brand new run.
Should say a huge thank you as well to everybody involved in the organisation of this event. Caught up with Ross Tapper very briefly last night. I think from a volunteer perspective, for this round, it hasn't required them to go searching far and wide to ensure they get the minimum safe numbers that we need. There was so many people putting their hand up wanting to be involved, and we've seen good spectators rocking up to the spectator points too.
Well, as they say, it's the best seat in the house being an official. You get to do a road closure, etc. The excitement and build-up around this event, Ross said he hasn't seen in 20 years. So that's fantastic. It shows the depth of the championship at the moment.
Stewie Reid and Bella
super committed.
Oh, mega.
He's got it wrong on the
right
entry.
Beside us here.
In the
car is sort of nosed into a ditch. Now trying to grab.
Now the problem will be if he's in second gear now, he's got to try and start it back up and now be able to grab reverse in a sequential box. He's got no wiggle room.
So the aerial shot you're seeing there.
He's going to get it out. Just need to give it a good run here.
So Mitsubishi Mirage is the point that we should make too. Gets it going. That's that got our attention there a moment ago. There is a little kind of ditch, the way the road folds around us here. And as we talked about it a couple of cars ago now, as you approach, you are turning, if you like, to the left, the car, and then you flick it back to the right, don't you? And unfortunately, it's just gone in a little too hot.
Which is what I was saying before. We take it for granted how good the front-running guys are. And look, Stewie's very experienced. He'll be a bit dark on himself there, but he came in super committed. I thought, here we go. He's got it turned in. He couldn't get it back. It was a little loose, and he knows the corner's coming back. He makes a call at one point, has to step on the brake, cover the spin. He unfortunately sort of ended up in the ditch, and of course then you're trying to find reverse and stuff like that. So a good recovery, but he'll be darkening himself that he just didn't quite get his breaker marker right, and that's what's caused some of the drama.
Queenslander, who's got a lot of experience too in a 2016 Mitsubishi Mirage AP4 car.
He's been doing a lot over in New Zealand. Of course, he's part of the Hayden Paddon group. He's been sort of over there, that car being engineered by the Hayden Paddon group, and he's loving the driving. And I think it's great that he's come back to do some Australian rounds. I remember battling him back in the day, and they're just a great character as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of, when I was over at a couple of the New Zealand events, he sort of made me turn my head because I was like, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, that's awesome that you're competing. So,
well, I think it's part of where he is at to enjoy. Look, New Zealand had some fantastic rally roads. They run some great events. So I think he's done that for a couple of years. So guess what? Now he's running through and doing some Australian Championship rounds. I think that's great. He sort of cut his teeth doing all that thing once he sort of finally arrived back in from England, etc. back in the day.
A couple of WA locals on approach now in a 2008 Mitsubishi Lancer Evo. Thomas Lawton, who's been very much in the fight for the Production Cup side of things today. It's been very hard to beat Hoy, who's been in the top 10 outright, but he's been a feature there.
And he's a talent. He's very good young steerer, doing well in the West Australian Rally Championship, and he's got pace. And in a production level, he's showing his worth in outright turns. So actually should give that a bit of a run through. I'm going to have a look at that on the stage before where he was sitting in outright turns, because he is once again showing his class. I just sort of search for him on the scorecard here. I can't actually see him unless he's at a drama, but yeah, good young talent and a good steerer.
So just waiting for the next car to approach. And that might actually tell us a little bit of the story. We've had quite a gap here. So we'll follow that yarn for you. You can appreciate we're in the forest at the moment.
Oh, this is Tim Hiles coming through now. So there might have been a problem with Lawton. So this is Tim Hiles, who had a drama on stage one. He's in the old spec legacy. Last year's campaign, the Hatch. He's a very spectacular driver as well. Used a fair bit of the road on the entry. He missed the apex slightly. I was a bit worried he might go wide there at one point. But
you don't often see, I mean, we tend to think now just off the Impreza, but to see that spec car and you're immediately transported back to the likes of a Colin McRae, maybe even the late great Possumborn as well, who you worked with.
Well, correct, and they've got this iconic sound and a sort of bit of a cult following. So, like I said, Tim's a good young talent. He drove one of the XX Challenge cars last year in Adelaide. He won the production side of the West Australian Championship last year. So he's a good steerer. He's just sort of rebuilding his funds. He had a couple of incidents last year, but he's still coming back doing ARC at the top level. And that car's quite well sorted. He had some little technical dramas early, but as you can see, it's a pretty lightweight spec for that era of car, and pretty spectacular steerer.
To your point, fighting back though, caught up with him at the service this morning, and the incident in question, I'm not sure what he hit, but it in fact broke the rim. So you could sort of see the centre part of the rim was still intact, but the outer area where the tyre would ordinarily sit on it had broken away, and as a consequence, they lost minutes in that process of having to stop and change.
Yeah, he dropped like 10 minutes in that particular stage, which obviously a bit of a disaster for them because he has showed pace in other stages. He's been in outright top 10 terms for what is an older spec car is a pretty good effort, to be fair. So I want to sort of just recap where we are overall. Obviously, range is an issue sometimes. So in an overall sense, the only people we've got to add to that is currently Clayton Hoy looks like he's 6th outright, Troy Dow 7th, and then Dylan King. But I think those could shuffle around depending how we see some of the other runners coming through. From a stage time perspective, obviously nothing really changed there. Dylan King will obviously expect Stuart Reid's time will be a little bit down by spending half a minute in the ditch, etc. But Clayton doing a great job to be 6th outright in that term. So let's see who's coming through now and ahead to us in this fairly spectacular section of road here at the Forest Rally. And this is Nick Box, actually rear-wheel drive, Sylvia. Let's have a look how he tackles it. He's generally fairly specky too.
And it flicks a little wide.
He was probably a bit disappointed with himself, and he's probably picked the gear he wanted, and it just went a little bit too much on the pivot, so he dropped a little bit of momentum from that point of view. But no, a good run from Nick, and he's doing a fantastic job when you consider rear-wheel drive, two-wheel drive car, like I said, showing his worth. And a bit of a cameo. We sort of see him do some cameos occasionally, but very spectacular steerer, but has cut his teeth, particularly in the last period in two-wheel drive cars.
Only a couple of cars away before we see Toby Price, the two-time Dakar champion, who is leaving, I should point out, pretty much as soon as this event finishes on Sunday night to head to Mexico and defend his Baja 500 win. He and Paul Wheel did such a good job to win that event by 7 minutes last year. I mean, there's an iconic event in the off-road calendar. I mean, Toby's been to Dakar. He's been so successful at Fink, for example. Then to chalk that up, and they're going to go back and have another crack, which is awesome.
And I guess with someone who's so well credentialed and has the experience that he does and the following he does, that's what I love about the fact that he's enjoying our sport and rallying. And he actually said to me the same as I said, I wish I'd started this earlier. Do you know why he didn't start earlier? He said, I was lucky enough when I was supported by Red Bull, I had a ride with Sebastian Loeb. He said it was probably the worst thing I ever did because I sat in there and thought there's absolutely no way I can do this. And he said it probably stopped me from doing it for quite a few years from the option. I don't think I can do rallying. And like I said, well, you sat in with the GOAT, which was awesome, but he said it absolutely probably scared the bejesus out of him.
You would automatically think that would create an addiction problem, wouldn't you, with someone like that?
And of course, you're marvelling at the talent, but you're sitting there going, could I do this? And some of the skill sets. So, like I said, maybe a misnomer, and he'd wish he'd started a little earlier. So,
waiting for the DCL contracting group entry, another WA pairing here, the 2004 Subaru Impreza. I think it's Frank O'Shea that we're waiting on, is it?
Yes, we should be seeing him come through. He's been doing a good job, and overall, I want to try and have a quick look at production and how they've been going through some of those things. So let's just go through here first.
There's the Impreza. I think the word there is tidy, isn't it?
And he's been doing a great job, and you have to be tidy in these cars to be fast. I want to just try and flick through to see him in production in regards to that term, because I think we want to sort of know where he's sitting.
Should say thanks to the team from Wolf as well. Wolf backing our production cup.
So Frank currently sitting in third in production. So he, Clayton Hoy leading the way ahead of Keith Hamilton, who's another WA local. Frank O'Shea third. So you sort of saw one of the podium getters there. And a bit of a shout out to Jackson Long, who we haven't seen come through here yet, of course. But in that RS, one of our juniors, fourth outright in production.
And
great job.
To your point, leading junior cup. I mean, it's kind of a solo pursuit that, but I mean that it is a good story in itself. Now, this should be, providing it's all running nice and smoothly. We do believe it's Toby Price, who is inbound in only his third ever rally. So he's got.
I'm nervous watching this thing come down here. I don't think I've seen the actual.
Let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, firstly, you're like a proud dad in the maximum motorsport sense, but also the long, amount of time that you've done things in conjunction with Subaru Australia. The challenge is a new thing for our series, relatively new from last year.
Well, it's trying, obviously, as the sport's moved on to the Rally 2 cars and the manufacturers, the tie-in with Subaru, they still have a proud heritage around rallying. And, of course, we don't do an STI, which was our base car for many, many years as a rally car, and the factory thought and put a lot of work into making those the best rally cars they could be, but a production model at the same time. We still have this iconic WRX, and to have the current model cars out there competing in the championship and taking a production car to the stages is unbelievable. And Toby's got a smile on his face. They're built to be a one-make series, so there's going to be implications in that. But they're so far showing a good set of heels in outright terms, and let's see how he tackles a hairpin in a.
I reckon that's nicely done. Nicely done.
We'd like him to be a little louder. At the moment, we're struggling with that a little bit, but something we'll try and work on. But Toby, we're improving. The nice thing about having the likes of Subaru, the Australian Rally Championship, ourselves, and the competitors involved in the challenges, we can adapt and try and make the cars a little better. We've improved since last time. The safety and everything's fine. So we sort of adapt to it, and obviously we hope to have a few more out there in the future. And from that point of view, Toby doing a fabulous job. And I think he's leading the way, so he'll be pretty cock-a-hoot if he can get through the last 10Ks.
Exactly. With Holly Kilbride beside him too. I mean, that's great to have that sort of
his first
stability.
pace-noted rally,
yeah,
so that's
exactly.
why that's important. And I think this category bodes well to be a great way to learn notes as well. Rather, he's got the skill to be in, you've seen him in outright terms, in production, etc., and then come through from that point of view. And, of course, we can hear in the background someone's going to be pretty spectacular to come through as well.
He is a bit of a YouTube sensation, right? So, Frank Kelly, if you've had a look online and seen the Irishman at the wheel of a Ford Escort, I mean, don't do that now. Let's finish the coverage. You can enjoy what we're doing here and then go and look at that separately afterwards. But how cool to have this guy down under and with us for this round of the
And we were worried
series.
the car was in quarantine, and we know how tight the regulations are in Australia, so I think you literally got it Friday. As this comes into shot, Rusty, I reckon we just stand back and have a listen and a watch. It's a tricky thing for a two-wheel drive, but we can hear it singing in the distance in the forest, which is spectacular when there's no wind, etc. But as it comes into shot, we might just close the mics off and have a bit of a listen to this car. Spectacular driver running through. And he, outright terms in the slippery stuff today, two-wheel drive, he was amongst some of the four-wheel drive guys. He's absolutely attacking.
If you love your history, if you love the some of the iconic cars that have made rallying what it is today, you're about to enjoy a little bit of that history. A Ford Escort piloted by Frank Kelly. Enjoy this before we wrap up our coverage here. The sound evokes all sorts of memories for those of you watching that have been following rallying for many years. We hope you enjoyed that. That is going to wrap up for now our coverage of things here, our live stage coverage. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. Don't forget, of course, too, if you're following someone in the championship, you want to know what's happening as far as all the various cups are concerned, and a day one wrap with those who've taken things out. Hayden Paddon winning Heat 1 of the Forest Rally. We'll be doing that all for you across our EROAD Australian Rally Championship social platform. So keep an eye out for that. On behalf of Taylor, Dean, and all of our team, it's bye for now.
packing up.